Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Supernatural, Inherit the Earth. And barring two interesting kind of things that happened in this, it was kind of messy. this, ugh, never mind the fact that this seemed like more of the series finale, so it's like, okay, what are we going to be doing in the next episode? It was really very strange and just, ugh. So we start off pretty much with the fallout from the previous episode of everybody's gone. So we got this stock footage of frickin' like New York and Kyoto and Japan, and there's like nobody around. It's like, yeah, we kind of got that. No, I don't know why you keep kind of hammering this on, but whatever. So we then see that Sam, Dean, and Jack meet up and pretty much get the information. It's like Sam's trying to get in contact with people. Of course, Dean lays down the information that Cass is now gone because he summoned the empty to take care of Billy and all that. And I kind of wanted more emotion from Dean and from Jack because Cass is very important to Dean, and for Jack, Cass is like a father figure. It's like, come on. Now, it wasn't that they didn't have any emotional reaction. It's just, it was like, okay, all right. So they're kind of just like wandering around trying to pretty much see more of what was going on, and this is pretty much done. Jack, of course, tries to pray to Cass, and we see that he frickin' does something with the plants. It's like, what the fuck is going on with that? We do learn, but it's like, honestly, very stupid. So then we see what could have been interesting couple of episodes to kind of take into account a world without any people in it. We see that they're trying to understand what's going on with this. We see Dean takes to drinking, Sam's trying to figure out other stuff, Jack usually kind of stays in his room. And during this, they actually try and get in contact with Chuck, and he does meet them. He's like, hey, we'll do your whole Cain and Abel thing. You put everything back the way it was. He's like, you know what? I don't want to do that. So he's a vindictive little twat pocket motherfucker. And he's like, no, I kind of want you to rot here and die, pretty much, with your little lapdog Jack. And goes, pretty much deuces. And then we see them kind of just like living this crazed ass existence until the plot demands that like certain things move along. Jack's like, hey, I think I kind of like sense some kind of other presence. So they got to pretty much this gas station place. Dean finds a dog. He's like, oh yeah, you're a miracle and everything. And Sam's like, holy shit, it's a dog. And he's like, you gonna put it in the car? He's like, yeah, it's not getting shotgun. No, he'll come around and everything. And then of course Chuck pops up and makes the dog disappear. It's like, oh, fuck, whatever, you asshole. Now, granted, I don't mind Chuck being this asshole, but it's mainly the plot demanding him being this. Because notice in the beginning of the season, he was wounded. He's like, I'm afraid, and everything like that. It's like, okay. And now he's like, ah ha ha. It's consistency that's needed. Internal character consistency. The plot's just demanding him being a douche to kind of sell more of this stuff going on later. Problem is, it gets in the way of certain things of that. So, Jack then's like, hey, my weird ass spidey sense is tingling again. There's somebody else around here. So, they go to this church, they go inside, and they see all these kind of like various religious texts strewn about, and then we find out that it was Michael. And he's like, yeah, Adam's dead too. During the whole kind of like purge thing. It's like, okay, that kind of is really kind of sucky way to just kind of like get rid of Adam that way. It's like, all right, fine. But here we get some important and very, 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 very late Michael characterization. And they're like, hey, what are you doing here? It's like, well, I've been pretty much hiding out, putting my power down to the lowest possible so that Chuck wouldn't find me. And he was just seeing what humans thought of God. He's like, they loved him, they adored him and everything. And granted, he was kind of part of that because when Chuck left, he sent out the angels and the prophets to kind of do that for his return and everything. It's like, but this, what he's been doing here, yeah, I'll help you guys out. And they've used him to try and open the Death Book, which we've already known is only being able to be read by Death. And of course it zooms in on Jack. It's like, is he Death or is he not Death? What the hell's going on here? So they're pretty much stopped until the plot's like, you know what, let's fucking do this shit. And Sam and Dean are pretty much trying to figure out what to do. And Dean gets a call from Cass saying that he's hurt and injured. So they go open up the bunker, and it's greatest hits time, Lucifer. And he's like, yeah, the empties shot me out to like deal with Chuck and everything like that. And, hey, just let me in on the team. It's like, really? It's like, I come bearing gifts. And whoop, pulls a Reaper out of his ass because the plot demands that this needs to occur because they wrote themselves into a corner. Funnily enough, we then get to the... Here, I'll show you. And then he kills her. And then she comes back immediately as Death. It's like, okay. Her name was Betty, too. It's like, alright, fine. Let's see how this goes. And she is like Death for the total of like 5 minutes. She's like, give me the book so I can read it. And she, of course, reads it. Comes in. It's like, yeah, here's the end. Starts reading it off. And then Lucifer kills her. Okay. Why is this a problem? Well, it's kind of hilarious that this chick was brought in to be Death to solve a plot problem as a plot object, pretty much. 2, it has just shown how Death, as even like a cosmic pillar, means fuck all. Because this is where we go from. We go from the original Death that we had, let's call him Pickle Chips, because like pickle chips, down to Chuck. Like, God wouldn't screw with him. A lot of people were like, let's not screw with him. And Dean just shacked him with the scythe. Okay, cool. Billy gets barely scratched by the scythe and gets knocked out. Here, Lucifer, Thanos snaps and kills her. It's like, why didn't Chuck do fuck anything with like Death at all? It's like, I got you. You could just. Oh, Billy's doing stuff. It's honestly just fucking nuts, and just goes to like how fucked up power scaling is anymore. So we find out that Lucifer is now working with Chuck to get the Death Book. Okay, why? Only Death can read the Death Book for all that shit. And in order for them to even get a Reaper, I mean, granted, they could have just like, I don't know why they didn't fucking summon a Reaper and be like, can we kill you so you can become Death so you can read this thing? So that way we can stop God. Why didn't they fucking do that? Oh, that's right, because they're plot objects and they can't do anything unless the plot demands it. But, no, here's where we get into a big fucking problem with this episode. You're gonna tell me Lucifer, who, by the way, has died multiple times and is like, gets another rack up before this episode's done. Lucifer, the one who, when God told him to bow to man, told him to fuck off, grabbed some homies, and started a war in heaven, and then got thrown into hell, and would still tempt man to essentially go, fuck you, God, would then be the one that God would turn to, and that he would actually work with God. Now, I'm not saying that that would not make a compelling story. They have done none of the work because we didn't see it happen. We don't have any context or any content for why that would even fucking occur. Like, not saying that Lucifer wouldn't do those kinds of things and be like, okay, cool. It would have to be under extreme circumstances. Now, granted, he is fucking with the Winchesters, which is usually like a national pastime for Lucifer. But, you have to do a lot of heavy lifting to be like, Lucifer would work with God. The whole Mara thing was a better thing than just, it's like, oh, okay, this would be the end of all existence. All right, fine. No, your fanfic writing asshole of a dad popped you out just because a greatest hits thing has now occurred. So then we get it's both like kind of the best Archangel fight that we get, / the worst, because it's not very involved, but it did at least show different kind of powers. So of course Lucifer fucking force knocks the boys off, which you would think by this point they would have at least, granted, you can't have the boys on the same level power scale wise as an Archangel, but you think they come up with some kind of effective like spiritual like concrete shoes so that way they're not fucking flung everywhere every 10 goddamn seconds. I mean, they have a fucking tattoo that stops them from being possessed. There's something that could at least negate a force push. But we then see fucking mini Kamehamehas pretty much being used, mainly on Michael's part, being like shoosty at them. But he's able to stab Lucifer with the Archangel Blade, doing another death for him. It's like, Jesus Christ. And of course, we're zooming in on Jack for odd fucking reasons, because this is supposed to tell us that something important is happening, even though it's not communicating anything like that with us whatsoever. So we then see that Dean talks with Michael, and Michael's pissed off because he's the good son. He should be the good son / the favored son. Why would Chuck go to Lucifer instead of him? And Dean's like, yep, that kind of sucks. And then we see Sam takes Death's book and is trying to figure out something in it for Chuck's death. It's like, but you need a death person to do that. And he's like, hey, I found this spell that should summon something that should take out Chuck. It's like, fine, fuck, whatever. Sounds the stupidest goddamn thing ever, but let's go for it, because nothing makes any sense anymore. So we are then going to the final place in Bumfuck Nowhere, and surprise, surprise, they start doing their thing, and it does this whole kind of like shoosty lice thing because we got to get rid of the budget. We find out that Michael betrayed them, and this can only be because Michael, in this case, is a plot object and must betray them. It's not like Chuck's God and could fucking know that they're doing that and just pop up anyway. But he's like, yes, Father, I gave them to you. He's like, you still sided with them, and then kills them. It's like, Jesus Christ. It's just to show more the douchebaggery that we've already seen. It's like, fine, whatever. It doesn't make sense that Michael would do this. Michael has been shown time and time again that Chuck doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. Why would he fucking do this? Like, he has gone through enough shit to be like, you know what? Nope. It just, they don't sell the turn. It's like, alright, whatever. So then Chuck's pretty much going to go up and is going to Thanos snap again. I mean, fucking Christ. Why do they keep doing the MCU homages? And listen, I'm an MCU fan, alright? But for crying out loud, do them better. And fucking do your own thing on them. It's so goddamn cringy. Jeez. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to get my hands dirty on this. And then what happens is because the plot demands it. Now, granted, I didn't know this at the time, but he's like, you know what? I'm going to beat you to death with my bare hands. And what we get is Chuck pretty much taking him down, and it's like one of the best kind of fight scenes that we see because Chuck actually starts like breaking arms and shit like that, but he keeps telling him to stay down. I'm like, I thought you were going to beat them to death. I mean, you're going to fucking take them out of existence, but whatever. And he just beats him, and then they're just start laughing. He's like, oh, we got you. It's like, what? Then they turn around and point at Jack, and Jack's like, yeah, I'm here. And then Chuck tries to go up and snap him out of existence. It doesn't work. He's like, what? Okay. And then he goes up and zaps all of the power out of Chuck, and we then get the worst kind of reveal, kind of Ocean style, that I've seen. Oceans does this shit better. But evidently they're like, alright, we knew that Michael was going to betray us, so we just made up some bullshit about this so that way we could get you out. Because they figured out that Jack had become a vacuum. for energy, because that's what he'd been doing. I'm like, then why isn't he sucking energy out of like people and like the planet and the universe? It's like they essentially turned Jack into Mega Maid from Spaceballs. God. God Almighty. It's. I'm like, alright, so I don't even understand how they, like, turned him into, like, that kind of thing. But that reveal for it was like, wow, this is stupid. So you wrote yourself into such a plot contrivance that this was the only way you thought to get out? Alright. Cool. And they're like, alright. Chuck's like, well, this is great. This is better, a good ending. Getting killed by the Winchesters. And like, no, we're gonna let you live out your life like you've done to other people, and you'll get old and you'll die and you'll die alone. And I like that ending, but just the way it's executed is just like, wow, it took so much shit to get here. And I'm still kind of not satisfied. You're like, okay, I like him being left to live a normal human life. Because it's interesting in that regard, because you see him, he's been born a deity, an omnipotent kind of being, and then being brought down like this. And we see that they go, and it's like, alright, yeah, okay. He doesn't understand any of this, and now maybe he will. It's just shit. And he's like, wait. It's like, alright, whatever. So they drive off, they get, and he's like, alright, kid, your turn. And he brings everybody back. Now, granted, I don't know if this is like all the other universes and everything, but we get a really good moment of Jack explaining what's going on. And if you're wondering, what happened to Amara? The other kind of shit-ass thing we get is that Jack's like, oh yeah, she's in me, and we're in harmony. It's like, wow. And granted, I'm glad that it was tended to, but you're just like, wow, Amara's character got completely and utterly shat on. And that's all you get. Oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, so let's go back home. And everybody's like, well, I can't, because I am there. I'm all there already, pretty much bringing up that he is God now. And that he's going to be hands off, and that when people are given the chance to be their best, they usually are. And it's nice and emotional. It's a good send-off for Jack. This is a good end for Jack, and I like how they did it, mainly because they didn't completely botch the content, and Jack was able to really sell it. What I really was reminded of was the journey of kind of like Captain America. Okay, bear with me here. Granted, there is MCU stuff, but you see Jack going through all these different things, dying, losing his powers and everything like that, and it has set him up to be a more effective God than Chuck. Because he knows all the hardships that everybody has gone through, and he knows that he's more hands-off and is able to keep everything running pretty much as well as it should. You're like, okay, that'll work. Only issue is then when you're thinking about it, is he leaving monsters and everything into effect? You know what I mean? You would think, but then again, if he's using, like, if people are left to their own devices to be their best, they should be their best. And, okay, cool. But I like this. It was effective, and, of course, Sam and Dean got emotional and all that, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be going now. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, Jack being turned into the new god, and pretty much in harmony with Amara, worked. Let's see here. But him talking like that and having that kind of reveal really reminded me of, like, Erskine talking to Steve in Captain America. Of, like, a weak man knows the value of strength and compassion. And that's really why Jack was the best kind of one to assume this role. Now, I wish more work had been put into that because he deserved better, but I'm like, okay, this kind of stuck for him a lot better than I thought it would have. Okay? Because there's a lot of ways that it could have went, and I'm like, alright, fine. Let's kind of see how this goes. I'm like, okay, I wish they had done more, but it wasn't complete and utter ass, but I lend that more to the actor and being not given complete crap to work with. And seeing it kind of pisses me off because I'm like, okay, with this and what you've done here is like, okay, cool. Why couldn't we have gotten more of that? And the problem pops into this effect that this was more kind of Jack's ending. It should have been worked more to be also the brothers' ending as well, because once you look at it, not a lot of people did a lot of things to like get here. Things more happened to them to allow them to do these kind of things because a lot demands it. But we see that Jack just like disappears and everything is like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And then they're like, okay, what do we do now? It's like we have to write our own story in the bunker, and of course we then see the episode end in like a montage to Running on Empty, which really pissed me off because it should have been Carry On. Granted, Running on Empty can kind of work to a degree, but I'm like, Carry On, My Wayward Son would have really fit here because there'll be peace when you are done. They found their peace, or at least are able to work towards their peace. It's like, these people don't understand this at all. And of course they zoomed in on the table and the bunker with like most of the people's initials and everything on them. It's like, okay. And we will have to see how they do a series finale, because this seemed like the series finale. And it's just like, it's crazy. Now, my endpoint is still season 5, but if I could tack on the shit that happened kind of with Jack and somehow streamline it, I'd be a little bit better off with it. But there's a lot of shit in these 10 years that I really wouldn't. Even though they stuck Jack deserved better, the brothers deserve better, all the characters deserve better, and it's just like, this is what we're getting. And I'm like, what is this end gonna be? Like, what are they gonna do? Are we just gonna see them old man style? I mean, they won. Or are we gonna get fucking subverted expectations and this was a Chuck Wright or something, and then he like fucks them all over and it's like, ha 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 ha. I'm like, oh god, if that fucking happens. Or it's just a shit ending for everybody involved like that. I'm like, this at least works well enough to be like, alright. Everybody worked out pretty much well enough to do it. This was just weird, man. So, next week, they've got an hour retrospective before the series finale, so put that into your time considerations because the episode will be on an hour later. You're fucked over Michael, Lucifer, and Amara in this. And it's just horrendously. Like, fuck, man. What? And so much empty space in the beginning that they could have, like, condensed. And they redshirted someone so hardcore it was fucking laughable. Oh my god. I just... Now, I did not expect to be, like, talking about and being like, hey, they kind of stuck something well enough that it could work. I'm like, Jack's thing, I would actually watch a show of him, just, like, going around being a deity. Because he still has a lot of shit to learn. I mean, granted, he's fucking, like, 2. But it would be interesting for then to essentially be him and Amara kind of tag teaming, because then you could have her as like talking to him and everything, because granted she's got a little bit more on him because she at least super grew herself up, but in the hands of better writers God, it would have been pretty cool. And that premise would be awesome. And it would have been intriguing if that had happened earlier in the series, to where, I don't know, they had actually fought God and then had to deal with the fallout of like a season or maybe something, seeing Jack trying to wrangle being God, not him turning evil, but him making mistakes and everything, and then the boys trying to help him out as like maybe some other hunters similar to like Sam and Dean are like, this God sucks, and because Chuck decided to poison them or whatnot, and have that kind of whole thing. It's just like, okay, this sticks enough, but it's still like, still has big structural issues. Like, alright, at least we got one kind of character to not be completely screwed, so let's see how they deal with Sam and Dean in this last one. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.